and there's as good of a place to stop as any, right on the model designation for this particular Colormatic machine, the model 6440. Yeah, and if you're not aware of it, the Colormatic series was kind of introduced way back in 1960, and the first model to come on the scene was the model 2000, Husqvarna 2000, which is a real popular model and has been pretty much since its inception. And you'll see here that this particular 6440 came originally with cams A, B, C, D, E, F. Almost sounds like I'm doing the alphabet, doesn't it? But I'm not. And the first cam that we have in the rear of the machine right now is cam A. So we're going to get some basic kind of ticky-tacky stitches going on there, along with some blind hemmers. And then we have cam B, we've got cam C, we've got cam D, we've got cam E, and certainly last but not least, we've got cam F. And we've got additional ones beyond that this particular owner, Joan Shaw, if I can find them, there they are. Joan Shaw has added some other cams to the series, and that question comes up regularly. Can you use cams from other Colormatic machines in other Colormatic machines? The answer is maybe. It all depends on the design of that cam stack. The cam stack, again, is the mounting point that is going to allow that cam to snap into place, and not all of them are the same. Not all of them are going to be equipped with the same number of mounting points either. In other words, cams come with different mounting points on them depending on the cam that machine was originally fitted for. So you got to be careful about that. And notoriously, with these Colormatic machines, is a chronic problem with cam stacks cracking. And what does that look like? Well, let me show you by kind of bringing the camera down on some of the issues that I had to mitigate with this particular model that belongs to Joan Shaw. Let me kind of lock the camera in place, and I'll just kind of go down the line and show you. First of all, when they started to move into the 1960s, again, most of the green machines that you see on this channel are going to be from the 1950s or earlier. Some of them are even late 1940s. But as they started to move in the 1960s and all the way through 1972 when the Colormatics were made, a lot of the parts that originally were metal went to plastic. And this part of the assembly right here is in the faceplate area, and it mounts to the joining pieces for the take-up arm. And a number of those pieces moved into the plastic realm. And on one of the final confirmation sew-offs off camera that I did for Joan's machine, this particular piece broke. Talk about kind of taking the wind out of your sails. I'm to the final phases of getting this machine ready to premiere it and getting it back to the customer, and this particular piece snaps. And it's because it's joined together with the other joining pieces in the faceplate area by a number of plastic assemblies that have this little tubing as an inner core. The inner core is fine, but the joining pieces that connect them all together, the plastic tends to degrade over time. Plastic, like anything, can become brittle. We've seen that before. And then it gives out totally unexpectedly. I'm actually very glad it happened in the workshop instead of me getting the machine back to the customer and then all of a sudden it happening to the customer. And Joan Shaw is a friend of mine and plans on giving this machine either to her daughter-in-law or to her granddaughter. The two girls are kind of fighting over it right now, knowing a little bit from watching some videos what these Swedish beauties are all about. So now we've got a granddaughter and a daughter-in-law that are like, ah! And so it'll be interesting to see. I'm staying out of that totally. I'm going to return this machine running tip top, and then it'll be up to Joan to broker the deal. Who gets it? The daughter-in-law or the granddaughter? Oh, I don't want to be in that circle. I do not want to be in that circle. No way. But I've offered to Joan, I said, you know what? If it becomes a little bit of a tenuous situation, let me know, and I'll get you another machine that you can give to your granddaughter. And then since the granddaughter probably isn't quite as dedicated of a sewer yet, we can get her a decent machine. It can even be a Viking machine. And then this higher end 6440 can go to your daughter-in-law. That way your son is happy too. You know what I mean? They're under the same, you know where I'm going with this. The same roof. Yeah. So, at any rate, this piece breaks in the final off-camera sew-offs. Has to be replaced. A lot of disassembly involved in the faceplate area to get to this mechanism. Then, as you'll see in the Facebook shots, I knew straight away that the cam stack itself, which is this piece right here, had a crack in it. But as that machine was sewed on more and more and more after having sat idle for a long time, the gap on that crack got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've got a repair process that I will apply if I think I can stabilize that cam stack so that the customer doesn't have to incur the added cost of the labor and the part as well for a brand new cam stack. But this one was, it just was clear that that fix that I have was not going to be sufficient in this case because the separation had become so great. So what starts out as a general service for this model 6440 all of a sudden now becomes a major repair operation. Plus these other parts also had issues with them as well. This spring had been stretched, that needed to be replaced. These joining pieces right here, they had to be replaced as well. And this is what comes right off of the main shaft inside of the faceplate and then feeds to all the other mechanisms, including these mechanisms right here. And so, you know, you just never know. I say this to customers all the time. They say, well, where is my machine in the lineup? How many more machines are ahead of mine, Scott, in the queue? And I say, well, I can tell you that, but that doesn't necessarily tell you the full story of how long it's going to take to get to your machine. Because stuff like this, all of this right here, can come into play. Where if you went to a standard repair center or a sewing center and they did their 30 to 45 minute service on your machine, which is practically nothing, some of this stuff wouldn't crop up until well down the road after that machine had been sewed on and been taken through the paces like I do both off camera and on camera. So that's how things like this can all of a sudden rear their ugly head, and what was going to be a 6 to 8 hour job all of a sudden adds hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to that equation of what that project ends up looking like. So that's why I say to all of you, many of you are watching right now are the ones that will reach out to me through Facebook Messenger, through email, through a call, through a text, and you'll say, so how close is my machine to getting on the workbench? It's stuff like this on Joan Shaw's machine and others, where all of a sudden that project can be doubled or even tripled as far as the number of hours that have to go into that project before I can move on to the next one. So that's why I'm always gun shy when someone reaches out and says, how much longer? And you always do it, well, I shouldn't say always, most of you always do it with a very, very soft hand and an air of grace and an air of gratitude, which I'm grateful for. Because maybe you understand that stuff like this can all of a sudden come into play. And what was going to be an ordinary project all of a sudden takes on a totally different feeling and timeline and all the other blah, 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 blah. But any rate, let me move all these parts out of the way so I can actually focus on a machine that doesn't need any of this anymore, thankfully. Got to gather all these parts up. And also, just for kicks and giggles, I can let you know without disclosing too much, because I do like to respect the privacy of my customers. I'm really big on that. But this is the caddy that goes with Joan's machine. And there's a place right here where I'll bag these up. This is where the foot controller goes, and there's other little cubbies where you can put all your goodies. And Joan is along in years, doesn't sew anymore, really describes herself as never having been a sewer, but more of a mender for her boys as they were growing up. And Joan's husband has since passed away. He was the local pharmacist in their town. And I don't know why I didn't ask her, but as I took this machine out and first started to look at it, I was just intrigued by all the little goodies in this caddy, to include, and Bill, you're going to love this, to include these rather vintage silver dollars that were also in this caddy as well. I don't know what the story behind those is. I'll have to find out. And if I remember, I'll let you know. But it also goes to show you, and by the way, I should share with you, Joan has a mind like a steel trap. I mean, she is as sharp as she was when she was a young woman as she is now, well into her golden years. And I know she'll remember that these were in here, and she doesn't give it a second thought because she trusts me. We're friends, as do all of my customers. And customers will send me providential materials that are priceless, other things like that, and I take that as a badge of honor. That's a badge of honor because my customers know me. I know them. They trust me. They know my reputation. And so little surprises like this, like silver dollars, that I'll find just mixed in with all the doodads is always a hoot, because it just goes back to that fact that you can't buy a reputation. I guess some people think they can, but you can't buy a reputation. And I'm greatly honored by customers that will give that to me up front, just based on the contact that we've had and the impression that they have. Blah, 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 blah. So, all right. Well, let's get into this machine. I don't know that I've ever shown specifically a 6440. I know I've shown the original Colormatic machine, the model 2000, on a number of occasions. And again, the 2000 came out right around 1960-ish. And again, Husqvarna was not always really great about helping us know the different phases and transitions within a series of machines like the Colormatic series. But I can tell you that this machine was definitely post-1960 and definitely pre-1972. So somewhere in there is going to be where this 6440 would fit. And if anyone wants to jump in and express their opinion, fine. But I'll just tell you up front, the Swedes are not the greatest record keepers when it comes to the dating of their machines. Even when you go to the Husqvarna official website, where they show the migration of machines from the earliest phases of their machines, sometimes those dates are even a little bit wonky. I'll just say it. Yeah. They build beautiful machines and they don't care about all the dating details, which is fine. It's fine. So, all right. Hey, you know what? Before I jump too deeply into this machine, let me put on a little bit more music. And I should tell you that first title is called The Joint is Jumping. We've played that before. As a matter of fact, it looks like we played a number of these before. I'm going to kind of jump around on genres today and style and mood. But this next one is called Chromatic Rag. Chromatic Rag. I'm not making it up. How could I? How could I make it up? Yeah. All right, let's go over to the machine and kind of just peek around a little bit. So all the way down here, you've got the model number. They're not going to leave us hanging there. It's the model 6440. These are some of Joan's little notes, and I made sure when I cleaned up the machine that I didn't take them off or I'd be in a lot of trouble. So you can see right here it says drop feed. I don't know what that says. It says button, I think. At any rate, it's the dropping for the feed dogs, this little doodad right here. You push it in to drop them, you push it in and pull it back out to make them pop back up again. Yeah, you do. So here's our stitch width, which Joan has done a brilliant job of labeling. The other hidden thing about this control knob is if you pull it out and you click it from left to right. Had to be a little dyslexic there for a second. So if you pull this entire knob out and you click it clockwise, let's just say clockwise, then I don't have to worry about it. You're going to be able to click it through the different phases of making a buttonhole. Okay? Otherwise, if you leave it pushed all the way in, you're going to be able to just stitch width. Okay? And you can go from 0, where we're at right now, where you can do straight stitching and do some buttonhole functions as well. You can turn it all the way over and go to the different color settings for stitch width, and then ultimately over to what I always refer to as the rainbow setting, which is going to be the setting you have for stitch width for the majority, if not all, of the colormatic stitch patterns that are cam generated. Okay? I'm going to move that back before I forget. So again, when you're in this phase right here, you simply pull this out. I'll do it just to show you. You pull it out. There it is. See, I just pulled it out. Now it's actually pulled out. And then you would click it clockwise in different phases to execute a buttonhole. The book that Joan has shows you exactly how to do that, which I'm not going to be covering in this premiere. And I should also lock the camera, otherwise I'm going to be in a lot of trouble here. So I'm going to push it back in before I totally forget and create all kinds of problems for myself. So that's back on straight stitch now, okay? Now I'm going to move back over by the camera and we'll move up the machine a little bit. I'll point out some of the other things. A lot of these are going to be similar to the other machines you saw recently, including the one I just premiered for Roz. So now we're up to this region over here, and you can see that Joan has done a brilliant job of labeling it already as stitch length, which is absolutely true. This is our stitch length controller. Below it, the first one we looked at that also you can pull out to execute buttonhole functions is our stitch width on the bottom. So stitch width on the bottom, then we move up here to stitch length. This is also our reverse button. We push this little button in, like so. We're in reverse, we let it go, we're sewing forward again. And our stitch length is going to give us a huge range all the way from way down here where we'd be at 0, you know, and it gives us all the different recommended settings. In other words, buttonholes are going to be between 0 and 0.5. Also, our stitches that are green and red are going to be in this general region as well. I usually go a little bit higher. And then we've got our orange stitches, our purple stitches, our blue and yellow stitches. It's kind of like playing with the rainbow almost. So we've got a whole range of different stitches we can do. Plus we can go past that and go all the way up to 6 to give us the longest stitch length possible, which, you know, we'll probably use for some of our sew-offs today. Then we go a little bit to the left over to here, and you can see that Joan labeled this one as well, which is brilliant. And I think she put something like stitch selector or stitch selection. And here you can change from a variety of different things, from straight stitching and zigzag and buttonhole, and you can click it over one more and go over here to like a blind hem, and then a stretch stitch, and then a blue stitch, and then a yellow stitch, and then a red and kind of an orangey stitch, and then a green and a purpley stitch. We got any color you could possibly want. I got it. I practically got it. Yeah, I do. So I'm going to go back over to straight stitch before I forget to do that. Right over to there. And I'll probably cover threading the machine later. But it's very straightforward on this machine. And I could even show it to you in the book as well. Now, ultimately, when you do thread this machine successfully, you're going to be threading this needle from front to back, just like Roz's machine. You're going to have similar thread guides, one right there where the thread goes right there above the needle, another thread guide there, kind of follow it up. This is our tensioner right here, and our little tension spring is kind of tucked in there as well. And then the tricking, you know, the threading gets a little trickier as you're going through here. Not really. And then off the back, blah, 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 over ultimately to our spool of thread, which is somewhere over the rainbow. And today I'm using this Americana thread, which is a coated thread. I don't know if I'm in love with this stuff, to be honest with you, but it's 100% coated cotton, which makes it a little bit more prone to breaking. And that's part of the reason I might eventually migrate away from it. No offense to my friends at Joan Fabrics. Love you guys. Love all of you at Joan Fabrics. And this is one of their premium threads that they offer at a very economical price. And that's part of the reason I initially started getting it, because I like to be economical. But it also has a tendency to break. So I hope I don't have any of that breaking issue today. I might. If I do, I'll rethread and I'll give it a go again. But that's the only thing I would say about this Americana thread. It's a little staticky, and also because it's a coated thread, it creates a little bit more drag as it's moving through the tension discs, as it's moving through the sewing process. And because it creates a little bit more tension and drag, it has a tendency to break. So hopefully we don't have that occur during this premiere today. I'll be elated if it doesn't happen. On the lighter sew-offs, it shouldn't. On the heavier sew-offs, it might. And if it does, we'll just roll. We'll just roll with it. You know what I mean? And if you're brand new to this channel, right over here you can see I already have a bobbin on here. I stuck it on there just to have a backup bobbin if we have to wind one during the premiere, like we did with Roz's, where I was using upholstery thread. Can't put as much on a bobbin. Ran out. And so we had to wind one during the premiere, which is totally cool. A lot of good feedback on that. Like, yeah, we love to see challenges, and we love to see you overcome them, Scott, because you, my friend, are a winner. You, my friend, are a champion. Those are from some of my star pupils said that to me privately. Thank you, guys. Love you. So right now I have a bobbin on here, which is going to automatically disengage the drive of the machine. It's going to take the drive away so we can wind a bobbin. Yeah, it is. So if I step on the foot controller right now, you're going to see this spin, but you're not going to see the needle move. I hope. I love the sound of power, don't you? Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Don't say you don't. I won't buy it. Everybody likes power. Some of you like speed. I know you do. Yeah, you do. So at any rate, this is also our slow gear. Along with sliding a bobbin on there, as you just saw me do, and it disengages the clutch automatically. You can also pull this little assembly out, which I'll do by reaching over the top so I don't block it. You reach on both sides and you can pull it out. And then that engages our slow gear. When I pull this out, all of a sudden the machine goes from full speed all the way down to 1/5 speed. It doesn't increase power. This particular machine comes with a 1 amp motor, original Swedish motor. It doesn't make it more than a 1 amp motor. What it does is it uses a gear reduction to slow the machine down from full speed to 1/5 so that you have better control over the machine. And you don't have to regulate the machine using the foot controller. You can use this gear reduction to slow the machine down to 1/5 and have more control as you're sewing very intricate work, as you're doing edges, as you're doing applique work, or other things like that. Okay, does that make sense? So don't write to me and say, I love my power gear. I love my power button. I love having more power. It doesn't happen that way. All it does is use a gear reduction to slow the machine down. Okay? I also forgot I never started the class officially. Okay. So that's just a quick little walk around the machine. And again, I already showed a little bit of this. And we may not be doing all of these in this premiere today. All these different decorative stitches. But I think we've got some really cool ones that we could pick from. A is probably the most boring one. But maybe what I'll do is I'll do a couple stitches from each of these. Plus, in addition to A through F, we've also got some additional cams over here. We've got cam H and cam I. And cam H and I, they've got some really funky stitches on them. So we'll have to try a couple of those just for fun. You know what I mean? Because, yeah, it's a workshop, it's a premiere, but it's also a playroom. Okay? Never lose track of that. We're here to learn and to have fun. Okay, let's get back down by the needle. We're going to start with some basic straight stitching because I'm going to be focusing on some heavier grade sew-offs to begin with, and then we're going to move into the decorative ornamental side of what this 6440 can do. And again, I'm hoping that our thread behaves, and again, being a coated thread, not moving through the system as freely as an uncoated thread, it's going to create a little bit more drag, and we might have a tendency to break thread today. I hope we don't, but we might. So, okay. So what else can I put on? How about school bus shuffle? If any of you have any interesting experiences where when you were a kid or otherwise, maybe even as an adult, you had an interesting experience on a school bus, or you hate riding on school buses, maybe you get sick, then type it into the chat. Type in and share with your friends here something interesting about a school bus or your experience on a school bus. Or maybe you were run into by a school bus when you were riding around, you know, in your car. God, I hope that didn't happen, but maybe it did. So this is school bus shuffle. Yeah, it is. We're just going to go down a little bit on the volume. School bus shuffle. Kind of like the wheels on the bus go round and round. Yeah, but this is the revised edition. Yeah, it is. Okay, what should we sew here? What do we have? We can do a little bit. Why don't we do some genuine elk hide? Why don't we do a strip of genuine elk hide? I'm just going to cut it down because I had a monumentally large piece here. And you already know what kind of thread I'm using because I harped on that quite a bit. But I'm using a size 90 Schmetz Universal needle today. So let's see what we think of this one. Okay, take-up arm is all the way up. I've got my slippers on. Hopefully I don't slip off of the foot controller. I hope I don't. Okay, straight stitch, long stitch. We should be set. Let's see what happens. Here we go. I'm all paranoid about this thread, so I'm kind of taking it easy here. Kind of taking it easy peasy. Have a little bit more courage, Scott. Have a little bit more courage. Oh, that's a lovely stitch. Isn't that pretty? School bus shuffle. Who knew that this song existed until right now? That's the other benefit of joining these premieres and watching these videos afterwards, is you hear music you probably otherwise wouldn't ever hear. And you just wonder where YouTube gets it, you know? Because these are all provided by YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you for the music, YouTube. All right. Gotta turn my screen around. I cannot see a lick of anything here. Okay, let's do one more stitch and then we'll look at these two together. And now we're going to drop a zigzag down on this bad boy. Let's drop a zigzag down. Alright, what should we do? Why don't we do a zigzag about 3, and we'll move our stitch length to 3 as well. Okay, so here goes a zigzag down a single layer of, and I didn't even say it, this is a single layer of genuine elk hide, about 3 to 4 ounces of genuine chemically processed elk hide. And as soon as you, and I've said this numerous times, but I'll say it again because some of you might be new to this party. When you chemically processed leather products, when you chemically process certain leather products like elk hide, you galvanize the surface of that leather. You don't make it supple, you don't make it soft, you don't make it delicate, you galvanize it, which raises the piercing threshold up dramatically on this leather. So we've done a straight stitch already, a very large straight stitch. I think it was the largest, yeah, it was the largest setting for this machine. Now we're going to lay down a zigzag right next to this straight stitch, and then we'll look at the stitching, see what we think. All right, here we go. Take up arm is all the way up, and let's see how this 6440 handles a zigzag with needle swing going down this fairly difficult and fairly thick material of genuine elk hide. All right, enough talking, Scott. Just do it. Okay, let's do it. Taking it real slow, folks. Going to do my darndest not to break thread during this premiere. If I can do it, I'm going to try. I'm going to try. No thread breaking. And if any of you want to cast votes just for fun, like me just dropping my clips, if any of you want to cast votes for fun as to whether you think the daughter-in-law or the granddaughter should be the one that Joan picks to get this machine, type it in the chat. You can put, you can even abbreviate it if you want. You can abbreviate, you know, granddaughter could be GD, and daughter-in-law, well, however that would be abbreviated. And cast your vote. And then I'll let Joan know what you said. Yeah, I will. All right, let's do our thread holder for this, just to make it a little bit easier, I think. Bent those a little bit too far up. Okay, let's look at the top stitch first. See what we think of this this stitching here. And again, I'm not using upholstery thread this time. I'm using a standard, whatever I said, Americana quilting thread from Joann Fabrics. So here's our top stitch. Again, this is a single layer of genuine elk hide. I'm going to look at both of them at the same time. Folks, I'm going to say that top stitch, without a doubt, page 34. Without a doubt. Totality of the stitching. Got to come out a little ways. It's a fairly good chunk of elk hide. Totality of the stitching is also a page 34, without a doubt. So I'm going to grab my handy dandy notebook. No, that's Dora the Explorer. I'm going to grab my handy dandy magnifier and just signify that this is a page 34 stitch, both the straight stitch and the zigzag. Now let's turn it over and look at the lock stitch, see if we also are going to give that a page 34. And again, this particular elk hide is going to have a little bit of a nappiness to it, so we're going to have to really get close in potentially to check these stitches out and just verify that we feel that they are worthy of a page 34 rating. I'm going to go back the other way too, folks. I can say without a doubt that this lock stitch on this single layer of genuine elk hide definitely is going to get my vote as a page 34 stitch level. Absolutely spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. I'm going to come out and look at the totality of stitching again. It's a little dark on there. Maybe it's the darkness of the machine or something. I'm going to bring my lights out a little bit more and see if we can shine a little bit more light on there. Give me a second here. There we go. Yeah, I think that helps a little bit. So again, on totality of the stitching, it's art. It's beautiful. And all it is a straight stitch and a zigzag, but it's absolutely spot on. As my friend Alex Ascroft would say from England. It's absolutely spot on, Scott. Just absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to throw that to the back as a definite pass. Our single layer of elk hide. And the 6440 is a great machine. I don't know that I would describe it as quite as rugged as some of the green machines. So I'm going to go through other sewing before I consider the possibility of trying to do 2 layers of elk hide with this machine. And it's not because it has a 1-amp motor. It's because this machine from right around the mid to late 1960s. Again, the Colormatics were made starting in 1960 until about 1972. For about a 12-year period, they made a whole variety of flavors of Colormatic. And so this particular machine would have been right around mid 1960s to late 1960s. And as I alluded to with my confirmation sew-offs off camera, when I had that 1-part break that had been moved from metal in the original ones to plastic, these machines were not designed to sew quite as ruggedly as the green machines were. I'm just going to say that, and if anyone wants to take issue with that, feel free. But I've worked enough on these machines and I've sewn on these machines enough to know that as they went through the different phases, moving out of the 1950s into the 1960s and ultimately into the 1970s, while the machines coming out of Sweden were still quality machines, there were certain decisions made about changing parts and components from metal to plastic that I think were missteps on the part of our Swedish friends over in Husqvarna. So I'll just say that. And this is a great machine, but it's not quite as rugged as the green machines. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, so what are we going to sew next? Should we stay rugged for a little bit? Should we stay heavy duty? Yeah, we should. Let's do a little bit more rugged sewing, and then we'll move into the decorative ones. Decorative ornamental type sewing. All right, I'm going to be a good boy and lock my camera in place. And what should we do? We did School Bus Shuffle, which was a hoot. Now we're going to do Merry-Go-Round. Merry-Go-Round. Excuse me. Get a drink real quick. You can get a drink too if you want. Yeah, my main theme I picked was ragtime, but this kind of almost feels like a little bit of country, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. All right, why don't we do some commercial, almost sounds Japanese, doesn't it? We're going to be doing some commercial. We're going to be doing some commercial upholstery material now. And again, recognizing that this is a later model Husqvarna than most of the green machines I show, I'm probably going to do 4 layers with this instead of 6. I could do 6, but I'm not going to. But still, even with 4 layers, check that out. That's nothing to burp or hiccup at, that's for sure. So 4 layers of this stuff, commercial upholstery material. Let me get this into position. We're going to do kind of a down and around. And right now I'm set on zigzag. I'm going to take it back to a straight stitch and a long one. I want to see a long one on here. But I'm not going to go max long. I'm going to go to about 5. I could go all the way to 6. Alright, so we're going to do a fairly large straight stitch down and around through 4 layers of commercial commercial upholstery material. I caught a frog. Yeah, I did. Alright, down and around, and maybe I'll do my slow gear on this so I can have better control, huh? I could do that. Let's try that. Let's try our slow gear on this, see what happens. In total silence. Yeah. And again, when you're when you're trying to adjust your needle and you're using the slow gear, there are times when you'll have to disengage the slow gear so you can move the balance wheel more freely. Because again, you're dealing with a gear reduction where it will sometimes cause a little bit of binding if you're trying to manually manipulate that balance wheel when engaging the slow gear. So I sometimes will just disengage the slow gear, move the balance wheel, and then re-engage the slow gear again. It makes it so much easier, and you're less likely to cause damage to the machine that way too. Alright, so let's finish off this next line of stitching, and then we'll head down to the finish line. Alright, I'm going to disengage my slow gear just temporarily. I'll rotate my needle down, pivot my material, re-engage the slow gear, and then we'll slow down. Excuse me. We'll slow down to the finish. I might have to get another drink here. Did you hear that kick in? It kicked in as I was pushing on the foot controller again. Okay, and for you box closers, go ahead and rotate this down, and I'll see if I can close this box off for you. Because I don't want you to have to do extra therapy just because I left the box open and you're all troubled about that. You know what I mean? Alright, here we go. Let's finish off this sew off again. 4 layers of commercial upholstery material. Here we go. Excellent. Alright. Raise that presser foot. We're rotating this material around. And again, if you were using your slow gear, before you try pulling the material away from the presser foot, clipping your threads in that, just go ahead and disengage that slow gear, and then you won't have any binding issue with trying to rotate that balance wheel. I don't want you to have to struggle if you don't have to struggle, right? So let me give these threads a clip. Alright, drop that thread in the waste can. So this is an example here. If you can kind of see that thread springing back forward, that is apparently the coating that they put on this thread somehow is a little bit more prone to pick up static. And so as you're using this thread, it will have a tendency to become very springy because that static is trying to pull it back. So let's look at the top stitch first. And this is, I'm going to get a drink. This is one of those machines that has what I call a sweet spot setting. There we go. Got a little drink. Hopefully that'll help. They've got a little sweet spot setting on the upper tension, and I'll show you what that looks like. There we go. Now I can find it. So this is the sweet spot setting right here on this model 6440. As the machine is aging and being sewn on, even after a complete service to the extent that I do it, because there are certain components and springs and other things that will kind of like breaking a motor in on a car. You got that break-in period where you're supposed to drive at a certain speed and not push it too hard as the parts are kind of settling in on the machine. The same thing is true of sewing machines, and as that machine ages, that sweet spot setting you see with that little red dot, which is kind of between 5 and 6, might work, it might not. And some people are so set on, I got to set it on the red dot, that they'll just drive themselves bonkers trying to do that. So don't let that be you. As your machine is used, as you've sewn with it over many years, you may have to adjust up that upper tension just a little bit to get a good balance of stitching. And right now, at least, on the sewing we've done so far, I've been trying to stick with that sweet spot. Let me come out on totality of stitching. And right now we're looking at the top stitch through 4 layers of commercial upholstery material, page 34 from what I'm seeing right now, but let's get in closer and take a look at it. And again, the stitching we're looking at right now is being controlled by the bobbin case. The top stitch is defined by the bobbin case. Well, folks, I didn't know what you saw. I'll go around one more time. But I would definitely give this a page 34, without a doubt. Even on my little turn down here, right about there. Did a little bit of a turn right there, and we have a little tuft of upholstery material popping through as well. The stitches, all in all, are just absolutely as they should be. This is exactly, I mean, you go to the sewing book of perfect stitching. See this. See this. Yeah, it is. So I am very pleased with how this 6440 managed the 4 layers of upholstery material, commercial grade upholstery material. Let's turn it over and see what we think of the lock stitch. Again, we went with the red dot, which is going to define on that upper tension, it's going to define what this lock stitch looks like. Let's see if that red dot is still true. Let's see if it's still trustworthy. So from a distance, totality of stitching, I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing. Very pleased. Let me just turn it a little bit more so we have a better angle to look at it. But we'll look at it with a lot of scrutiny. We'll look at it underneath a microscope and see whether or not we feel, okay, maybe that red dot is not something we can rely on, especially if we're going to be sewing a ton of commercial grade upholstery material. So far, so good. A little bit weak right there. A little bit weak. Back in a nice rhythm now. A little bit weak there. So my opinion is that this machine laid down a page 34 stitch, but if we wanted to give it all the poppiness that it deserves, without taking away from the top stitch, which I think is spot on, then I would look at that little red dot and I would say, okay, you might work for most sewing to give us a decent lock stitch, but if we're going to be sewing a commercial upholstery material all day long, or something its equivalent, then we're going to be tweaking you up closer to probably 6. Maybe for certain sewing, we might even go above 6, but just a little bit of a bump up from 5.5 to 6, or maybe a little bit above 6 for certain materials, where that material is going to be fighting that needle as it's trying to pull that thread with the take-up arm back through the bottom of that material to define that lock stitch. We might bump you up a little bit. So I'm just letting you know, red dot, right now, you're on notice. You are on notice right now, red dot. We may not honor you through this entire premiere. Okay? All right, I said it. I know it was a little ugly. If you had kids in the room, if you had grandkids in the room, I apologize. So all in all, the red dot did okay. It did okay. But there are certain points where I think it could have done better. Right up there, it could have done a little bit better. And part of that, I understand, is the texturing of the commercial upholstery material. But I am not an easy person to satisfy in these final confirmation sew-offs. I want to get as close to perfection as we can. So I'll give this a page 34. Let me grab the magnifier to signify that. But I would bump up. The upper tension above that little red dot just slightly to give us the edge that we need to pull this coated thread, which is going to create additional drag, to pull this coated thread up through these 4 layers of commercial upholstery material. I just would. But apart from that, I'm very happy. Very happy. I think it's a definite pass, both on this top stitch and on this lock stitch as well. I think the machine did an excellent job. And again, look at from the side what we're talking about here. Got to lock this camera in place. Right now it's loosey-goosey. Look at what we're talking about here. Let me move into the camera a little bit more. 4 layers of commercial upholstery material, folks. Look at that from the side. And from the side. And from the side. So don't even think for a second that this is an easy sew-off. It isn't. 4 layers of commercial upholstery material is a true test of the strength of that 1 amp Swedish motor that I serviced on Joan's machine, and it gets a definite pass from me. You didn't see it, but the King gave a quick thumbs up too. Be honest with you, I didn't even know the King had thumbs. No offense, Your Majesty. Where'd you go? There you are. Yeah, I was just saying you gave a thumbs up. So, he does it so quick, you don't even really see it. Alright, so what are we going to do next on this? I'm kind of like, blump, 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 blump. What are we going to do next on this 6440? Let's keep on the realm of heavy duty. And I should also, let me put on some more music and cut a quick strip of my ribbon material, my 100% polyester ribbon material, which is like rice paper thin. So we can sew that off as well, because at the last premiere that we did that at, for Roz's machine, got a lot of good feedback. People want to see the machine be able to manage light material too. So let's put on, we just heard Merry-Go-Round. Now we're going to do By the Light of the Silvery Moon. And if you know the words, oops, I just bumped the wrong button. If you know the words to this song, By the Light of the Silvery Moon, feel free to sing it. Or you can type them into the chat if you want. While I'm cutting this ribbon material. Matter of fact, I'll turn this up a little bit while we're making this quick little transition. All right, I got it. By the moon, by the moon. You tell I don't know the words. By the light of the silvery moon, by the light, by the moon. Something like that. All right, if you know the words, you got to help me out here, folks. Seriously, this is embarrassing. What a classic song, and I don't know the words! Holy mackerel, even the King is frowning. Alright, so I just cut this ribbon material. This is what I was off doing because I hadn't remembered to do it. Alright, we're kind of in the heavy mode. And I think what I'll do now is I'll do some commercial grade canvas. I did canvas in the last premiere as well. That was fun. And we'll do 4 layers of this as well. So I'm going to fold this in half. We're up to 2 layers. I'm going to fold it one more time. And we're all the way up to 4 layers of commercial grade canvas. Canvas is tough stuff if you've never sewn it before, folks. So we'll do a little down and around on this one too. Alright, let's see how our 6440 manages this. 4 layers of commercial upholstery material. And we'll be doing a long stitch, and then maybe I'll do something down the middle for fun. And I'll let you box closers know up front, I ain't gonna close the box this time. I'm a rebel. It ain't gonna happen. Alright, here we go. I'm actually managing that with my foot because I'm not using my slow gear right now. Yeah! By the light of the silvery moon. What a fun song that is, isn't it? Okay. So we did a straight stitch around. I can see I sewed a little bit crooked at one point, so oh well. It happens. I was too busy trying to remember the words to that song. Doggone that song! And I don't know when that song came out, but I would guess that that probably would have been a song that was very significant to Joan when she was growing through the different phases of her life, whenever that song came out. Now I'm really curious. If anyone wants to Google when did that song come out, that would be really cool. Type it in the chat. If you're the first one to type it in the chat, you get an A in the class today. Yeah, you do. Okay, so we did a straight stitch, 4 layers of commercial upholstery, commercial canvas. I'm stuck on the upholstery now. And now what we're going to do is lay down a zigzag down the middle of this. I could totally do a blind hem stitch. Why don't I do that? Let me pick out another song. And again, if you typed it in the chat, that'd be so cool. So it's By the Light of the Silvery Moon. By the Light of the Silvery Moon. Google it. Let me know when that song was written, released, or whatever, something like that. So the next one, and I believe that Paula mentioned this particular song, and it also was a movie, I believe. Yeah, it was. Yes, it was. The Entertainer. And that's the next one we're going to play right now, is The Entertainer. Turn it down a little bit. Not too far. I love this song. And any of you piano players, if you ever learned to play this on the piano, as Granny would say in Beverly Hillbillies, type in the chat that you know how to play this song on the piano, or you did know how to play it. Yeah. Okay, so let's do a stitch off of cam A, if I can figure it out. I haven't done this for a while. So let's see, I think I'll do the blue stitch. Yeah. And I can just show you real quick. Let me widen this shot. And you'll see why they call it the Colormatic. Everything about this song is fun, don't you agree? So we're going to be doing the blue stitch on cam A, which you probably really can't see from that distance. But we're going to see if we can set that one. Oh, I went the wrong way. That happens sometimes. So we got to set it on blue. And then we have to make sure that this one for stitch length is set on blue, which it is. Kind of right in the middle there. Go a little bit shorter. And then we have to set this one. Wait, that's stitch length. I said it backwards. Rewind. Stitch selector is on blue, stitch length is on blue, and now stitch width has to also be on blue, which is our rainbow setting in this instance. So now we should be able to sew this stitch right here, and I'll kind of zoom in on it so you can see what we're going to be trying to sew. Through 4 layers of commercial vinyl. I need to drink something more, drink something less. Commercial canvas. So that blue stitch right there you're looking at on cam A is the one we're going to be trying to sew. And I'm sure it has a name. We can call it whatever we want to call it. You know, railroad tracks or something like that I think would be fun. So with that, the song ended beautifully. Let's get over here. Look at those stitches. Those are lovely. Lovely stitches. Let's not mess it up now with doing this stitch, okay? Let's keep it going, baby. Let's keep it going. All right. So now we're going to be trying to lay down this stitch number 1 off of cam A. Let's see what happens. This will be fun. And we'll see if our lock stitch stays tried and true with our red dot. All right, here we go. Oh, this is one of those fun stitches that goes backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. Just gonna see where. Oh yeah, you can see it. Cool. Look over our shoulder and see where we were at with that stitch. So, all right, I'll keep it even now. It's kind of going up and down there. Stop! I think I went too far. Ah, bummer. I'll have to clip that thread so it looks like it's right. I did pretty good. I did pretty good. Not bad. Not bad. Not good. Not bad. We're always positive in the classroom. It could have been worse. I'm not sure how, but it could have been. Okay, so I'm going to move that to the back. And now we'll have a chance to finally look at this stitching on these 4 layers of commercial canvas. See, I got it right that time. Yeah. Commercial grade canvas is what this stuff is. All right, I got to take those little extra stitches out because that's going to bug me. Could use that total cool thing that Annette got me from Texas. I'm just going to give it a quick clip right now to try to fix my problem. I was sewing outside of the lines. What the heck? This is a classroom. You're supposed to sew within the lines, right? No, not in this classroom. We always push the boundaries, don't we? Yeah, we do. Okay, now I have to decide. Yeah, that should be the top stitch there. I think that's the top stitch. Just trying to think of how. Top stitch, lock stitch. Okay, this is the top stitch. I got it finally. Okay, so let's look at this top stitch. What in heaven's name happened over there? There we go. I had this weird little renegade thread that was just wanting to hang on and said, "No, I will not go! I will not go silently!" Well, you just went, pal. Sorry. I could see that little thing where I kind of deviated from the path. Okay, totality of the stitching first. So we've got 4 layers of commercial canvas. And we're focused on the stitch, not necessarily my sewing technique, but we're focused on the stitch quality. And I would give the stitch quality a very high mark and would say that it is, yeah, I'd say that's page 34. And we'll get closer to it so we can look at those a little bit closer. But in the meantime, I'm going to give it a provisional page 34. And we'll see what we think. Okay, let's start on the top row. Again, this is our top stitching. There, one little wonky. That is some really good stitching. Let's look at that center piece right there where we did that stitch 1 off of cam A. And again, that's incorporating a lot of crazy needle swing and also a lot of feed dog movement as well to accomplish that. Kind of move across now. And canvas is one of those materials that unless you have a lot of presser foot pressure, it's going to tend to try to shift a little bit as you're moving it over those feed dogs. And overall we had some real good success. But a couple little points like around the middle of the stream there where we had a little bit of a pitching, and that's a product of feed where it's not feeding evenly and true and straight. But the stitch quality, definitely page 34. So let me come out of the shot a little bit. We'll look at the totality of stitching. Right about there. I'll get my hand off the camera. Totality of stitching is absolutely spot on. Very, very good sample of excellent, excellent stitching, both for the straight stitch around the boundary and then also that ornamental type stitch that we did off of cam A. So I'm going to turn it around. We'll look at the lock stitch now and see what we think of that. This again is, when we look at this lock stitch, we're kind of testing the integrity of that red dot that I showed you a couple of times now. That red dot on that upper tension. Is it accurate? Is it true? Is it trustworthy? We will find out. So far, so good. And there you'll see some of the tufts of the canvas actually kind of segregating the stitches. And that's just the product of the material. That's not the product of the sewing. As that needle punches through it, it kind of deviates the material a little bit and causes those little separations. There again we have some feed stuff going on. There we have a little bit of a tension thing right there. Right in that region. It may be a combination of the material and the tension, but there I would have increased the tension beyond that red dot a little bit. And it may just be the composition of the material at that point, because then we kind of get back in a rhythm again. A nice even rhythm of that stitching. Oh, I didn't go in here. Sorry about that. So here's our decorative or ornamental stitch. Stitch number 1 off of cam A. And again, I think that's spot on. Again, I'm a little bit skeptical of red dots, but all in all, we're doing pretty well so far. A couple of feed things going on depending on the material that we're sewing. But all in all, the stitch quality in and of itself, I would give this lock stitch also a page 34. The alignment is off a couple times, but that's because I didn't feed it. It didn't feed absolutely true with these multiple layers of commercial grade canvas over the feed dogs and underneath the presser foot. But all in all, a real good product. So I'm going to throw that to the back as well. So let me pick out another piece of music, and we're going to keep marching forward. I don't know if we'll stick with heavy duty sewing, or if maybe we'll move over to that ribbon material right now, so I can sew that before I forget. But again, I'm really pleased with the way Joan's 6440 is doing so far. So the next one is called the Easy Winners. The Easy Winners. This is totally ragtime. I love this. Okay. Oh, I gotta change my shot. I just turned my screen around. It's like, boy, we're long distance. See how that gets all curly? It's got to be the coating picks up the static electricity more. Totally. You could have like a little wet sponge or something like that where you could dampen your fingers and kind of run it over the tails of the thread. All right, what do we have next? Okay, I'm going to do this ribbon material now. Again, this is 100% polyester, and I'll keep using this stuff until I run out of it. And I guess I could always pick up more. But we're going to probably do a decorative stitch all the way around it, and then a straight stitch down the middle for kicks and giggles. So let's see what we have here. I'm going to start right about there. So the last stitch we did was the blue stitch. Now I think we're going to probably do a modified blind hem stitch, which is going to be the purple stitch. Let me show that to you real quick. So we have two almost appear to be blind hem style stitching. Oh, the orange one is kind of fun too, isn't it? Orange one is actually more fun than the purple one. Let's do the orange one. Okay, let's do the orange one. Okay. So I'm going to take my stitch selector first, this one right here, and I'm going to turn it to the orange setting. And again, whenever you're making changes on any of these control areas, whether it's the stitch selector, the stitch length, or the stitch width, make sure that your needle is clear of the material. So I've got this set on orange now. Now I'm going to take my stitch length and I'm going to turn it to the orange region. And then I have to take my stitch width and turn it to the orange region as well, which we just did. So with those three setting changes, we should be ready to lay down this orange stitch on cam A around the edges of this ribbon material. All right, here we go. Total silence, other than the hum of my heater. Here we go. Okay, make our turn. Final turn to the finish line. Got to widen that opening a little bit, otherwise we're not going to have room for a straight stitch down the middle. Perfect. Excellent. All right, let's get that needle all the way into position. We'll give our threads a clip and then we'll do our straight stitch down the middle. And there goes our curly thread again. Okay, so we did our stitch number 3 off of cam A. Oops. And now I'm going to try to do a straight stitch down the middle. Yeah, all in all, I think our red dot is keeping its job for now, but we might take that job away anytime soon. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to lay down a straight stitch down the middle to finish off our sew off on this 2 layers of 100% polyester ribbon material. So my needle is clear of the material. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my stitch. Oh yeah, we did do it from a distance. That's pretty groovy. I'm going to take my stitch width and I'm going to adjust that back to a straight stitch. Our stitch width I'm going to take back to, our stitch width I took to a 0. Our stitch length I'm taking now to I take it to about a 5. And then finally our stitch selector, I'm going to take that back to a straight stitch option as well. Yeah, I keep getting dyslexic on these two. Stitch length, stitch width, stitch length, stitch width, stitch width, stitch length. I know what they are, but you know, you get sometimes a little bit fuddle-buddled head. So here we go. Straight stitch down the middle. Here we go. All right. All in all, pretty straight, which is good for a straight stitch. All right, let me give these a clip. Oh, I sewed over one of my threads. All right, almost got it. Okay, let me grab my little goalposts. We'll set this up and take a look at these stitches and see what we think. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I think all in all our red dot did a good job. So let me rotate this a little bit. We'll look at this one first. Our top stitch, and then we'll turn it over and look at that lock stitch. But I will pick out a little bit more music for us first. And since I know pretty much everybody in this premiere loves The Entertainer, we'll play that one more time. All right, let's zoom in on these. So again, around the edge we did a decorative type stitch. It would have been the orange stitch if I'm not mistaken. Where is it? Yeah, it would have been the orange stitch. So it's kind of like a blind hem, but not really. It's got its little peaks and valleys. Yeah, I think we're right about, let me bring that light in a little bit more. And at the same time we're seeing that straight stitch down the middle. Some very, very nice stitching. Totality of the stitching. I had the angle of my little screen wrong and it looked really dark. Now it's not dark anymore. So I think that's definitely a page 34 stitching job of the decorative stitch number 3 off of cam A, and also the straight stitch down the middle. Now let's look at the lock stitch and see what we think. Let's see what we think of the lock stitch. Absolutely page 34, folks. Again, this is 100% polyester. Paper thin and real slippery. And this 6440 did an excellent job of managing this sew-off as well. Kind of stop right there, right at the end of the entertainer. So I'm really pleased with this sew-off as well. This is our thin sew-off, or our light sew-off. 2 layers of, I would almost say rice paper thin, 100% polyester ribbon material. The machine did an excellent job of maintaining stitch integrity, stitch formation, and laying down just spot-on stitches, both for the lock and the top stitch. So again, I joke about that little red dot, but that little red dot is doing its job so far. But that's a big product of my servicing of the machine as well, is getting everything recalibrated, getting it serviced and operating properly, so it's going to deliver on heavy or light or anything in between. So excellent job on that stitch off as well. Really, I mean, it's an impressive machine from the late 1960s. It's done a really fine job. Let's see, how about the cascades? How about the cascades? And I'll get a quick drink of water too. All right, let me get in closer to the needle. And I'm going to set us up for another sew-off. I'm trying to see what else we have left. I know we have some of the compressed felt. I know we've got some of that. And I didn't do that on the last Husqvarna, so maybe I'll do some compressed felt. I also have acrylic fiber as well. And I've got a little bit of that bubblegum material as well, so I just don't want to run out of thread this time, but we're not using upholstery thread, so I think we got a good chance. Okay, so let's do some of this compressed felt, which is the only material that I did on a live premiere that broke my needle. And it broke a needle identical to the one we have in the machine today, a size 90 Schmetz, I believe is what that was. So we've got 3 layers of this, and I cut this way too big. So let me shorten this a little bit, because we're just going to do a single row of stitching going down it. If I can find my scissors. We probably only need about half of this. Alright, we're going to do 3 layers of this compressed felt. So I'm going to fold it once, then I'm going to fold it one more time. And I've got the shiny side facing out as opposed to this textured side, so we'll hopefully be able to see the stitching a little bit more clearly. Alright. Let's see if we can, oh, I don't have that presser. I did this in one of the other recent premieres where I didn't have the material all the way underneath the presser foot and I kind of spun out. Let's not repeat that again right now. So now we're going to lay down, let's lay down a zigzag on this. Yeah, let's lay down a zigzag. So I'm going to lay down a zigzag. I'm changing my stitch width to right around 2.5. I've already got my stitch selector on zigzag, and then my stitch length I'm going to set right around 2.5 as well, right in that range. So off camera, what I've done in preparation for sewing these 3 layers of compressed felt is I set my stitch selector on, it's basically, it's got several options for the stitch selector for this region of it. It's got a straight stitch, a zigzag, and a buttonhole. But we're obviously going to get a zigzag because we're not going to pull that bottom knob out like I showed you before. Now I'm going to set my stitch length on 2.5, my stitch width on 2.5, and let's buzz down this and see what we get. Again, compressed felt is really dangerous stuff to sew as to what it can do to a needle. So let's hope that all turns out well on this. All right, here we go. Make sure everything is set. Okay, we should be good to go. Here we go. Always makes me a little bit nervous, but I shouldn't be, because of all the time that I pour into these machines and the preparation work I do before they ever reach this milestone of being good enough and being qualified after going through, on the Swedish Beauties at least, 126 confirmation steps and services that I do on these machines. So no worries, we got this. All right, let's take a look at this compressed felt. Again, some real tricky stuff. We'll look at the top stitch first, and then we'll move over to the lock stitch. So this is our top stitch right here. Let's zoom in on this and take a look at this. Folks, that is absolutely page 34. Totality of the stitching. Kind of a long piece, so you have to come out a little ways to see it in totality. But that is absolutely exactly what we want to be seeing, folks. The formation, the spacing, the integrity of the stitch. Again, a swing stitch going through 3 layers of compressed felt. That is not an easy task at all. Let's turn it over and see how we did on that lock stitch. So let's see if that red dot, that is a default for this machine for upper tension, let's see if it's going to keep its job. Let's look at this lock stitch. 3 layers again of compressed felt. So we're already in a position to see the totality of the stitching, and from this distance looking at the totality of the stitching, it's absolutely spot on. I'm loving what I'm seeing. Let's zoom in on it and see if we agree. That is some gorgeous, gorgeous stitching. Don't you agree? If you're impressed with how this 6440 managed these 3 layers of compressed felt, and certainly all the other sew-offs for that matter that we've already done, go and type in the chat like a thumbs up or a smiley face or something like that. That is a gorgeous lock stitch, folks. Absolutely gorgeous. And again, we started totality. We'll go back to totality again. That is definitely deserving of a page Page 34, folks. Definitely deserving. And to emphasize that, page 34. Page 34. Incredible stitching on the part of this 6440 from the 1960s. I'm going to throw that to the back as a definite pass. So far, just to recap real quick what we've already done. Let me move this to the side. So far what we've done, and we're not done yet, folks. We've done this compressed felt, which you just saw, the 3 layers of that. Definitely not an easy sew-off by any stretch of the imagination. We've done the 2 layers of super paper thin ribbon material, and this 6440 did an incredible job of managing that as well. Then we did the 4 layers of commercial canvas, and the machine again did a bang-up job. I think on this particular sew-off I said that I might have bumped up the upper tension slightly to emphasize that lock stitch a little bit more, but all in all the stitching was absolutely spot on. Then we had these 4 layers of commercial upholstery material, and again Joan's 6440 did just a fabulous job. And then we did our single layer of genuine elk hide, and again this Swedish beauty from the 1960s did an absolute amazing job. Already, and this would be enough for most people, already this is our sew-off sandwich. And we're not even done yet. We're not even done yet. And that's why I say my confirmation process before a machine is allowed to leave the workshop is light years beyond what other people doing similar work to mine do to show their customers that the machine is ready and good to go. They might do a single thin little layer of cotton polyester blend with a couple rows of stitching. That's it. Not for me. I want to take it well beyond that. So I have the confidence to give it back to that customer knowing it's good to go. Knowing it's ready to rock and roll. So let me come on in this shot a little bit as we get ready for the next sew-off, which probably is either going to be leather or bubblegum material. I haven't decided yet. Either leather or bubblegum material. But first of all, we'll put on, this is a tough one to say. Let me get my tongue untied. Swipsy Cakewalk. Swipsy Cakewalk, something like that. So why don't we do bubblegum material? And on the other Swedish Beauty, I did 3 layers of that. I don't think I'd ever done that before. Especially, I had never done that on Roz's green style machine, her Type 21E, using upholstery thread. Now we're using this coated Americana quilting thread. So I don't know if I'm going to do 3 layers or not. I don't know if I'm that adventurous. I might. If you think I should do it, type it in the chat. If you think we should do 3 layers of bubblegum material with Joan's later model Swedish Beauty from the 1960s, not from the 1950s like a lot of the other machines that you've seen on this channel, the green machines, then go ahead and type it in the chat. Go for it, or something like that. While you're doing that, I'm going to get another drink real quick to wet my whistle. I'm guessing already, because you are courageous students and teachers, that you said go for it, Scott. No fear, buddy, no fear. So that's what I'm going to do. This one I cut really quite long too. You see here, there's 2, 3. Yeah, that's about all the material I need right there. I don't need to make it super wide. So let me cut this one down too. I hate to waste stuff, you know. Here, I'll fold it in half that way. I know I'm cutting it evenly in half. Alright, so 3 layers of bubblegum material. there's what we're going to be sewing right there, folks. Definitely not a thin sew off at all. And this stuff, if you're new to this channel, I went to all that effort of folding it, now I'm going to unfold it. Look at this stuff. That's why I call it bubblegum material. Yeah. All right, let's give this a fold again. I'm going to become quite good at folding here. All right, what should I sew? Should I do a decorative stitch? I could do the purple one on cam A down the middle. That would be kind of fun. Or I could do a straight stitch. Or I could do a straight stitch around the edges and then a decorative down the middle. As narrow as this is, that would be a challenge. Especially with all of you knowing that I don't always sew on course. No, I don't. But that's why you love me. I don't edit things, kind of like Paula said in the recent premiere. She said, Scott, you don't edit things. You show it to us the way it is, and then you encounter obstacles and you overcome them, and it inspires us as students. That's not exactly what she said, but sort of, kind of. So let's do a straight stitch around the edges. So I'm going to take my stitch width, which is this bottom knob, all the way back to 0. I'm going to take my stitch length and I'm going to set it right around on 4, so a little bit shorter straight stitch. And then we're going to ultimately see if we can do a decorative stitch, the purple one down the middle. We'll see if we can squeeze this out. We'll see what happens. All right, here we go. Really trying to meter out that power. All right, let's give this a turn. Hope I didn't go too far. Hope I didn't go too far. Right on the edge. Right on the edge. Okay, down to the finish line. I'm not going to close the box, and then I'm going to try to go down the middle with the purple stitch on cam A. I'll show you what that looks like. Here we go. Holding my breath a little bit. This bubblegum material is tricky stuff. It's tricky stuff, folks. All right, I'm pulling that thread out. Give this a clip. There goes my curly Q thread again. Yeah, that's the only feedback I would give to Americana about their quilting thread, is that whatever coating they're putting on it is like a magnet to pick up static electricity. That stuff just goes curly crazy. And I can see already that our straight stitch, again, the settings of, if you want to duplicate this on your Colormatic, especially if you have a 6440, if you want to duplicate this, what I laid down with this straight stitch is I laid down a straight stitch that is set with the stitch width obviously at 0 because it's a straight stitch, duh. The stitch length is right on 4, and then your stitch selector is obviously on straight stitch. But now we've got to go purple. Now we're going to go purple. So again, those are gorgeous stitches, aren't they? Look at those. Ooh, doggy. So again, the purple one we're doing right here, we haven't done that one yet. So we're going to do that one next. And to do that, we've got to set our 3 knobs in the purple region. So our stitch selector, we've got to turn that to purple. And again, make sure your needle is clear of the material. Now our stitch length, we're moving it to purple as well, and that's a lot more narrow field on this one, a lot easier to identify it. Now finally we need to move our stitch width to purple as well, which is going to be right in this neck of the woods. We've got purple and orange kind of together. Okay. Perfect. All right. So now we're going to zoom in on this, and we should be laying down that purple, kind of looks like a blind hem stitch down the middle of this straight stitching we've already done. So purple, 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 purple people eater, whatever it is. I'm already going to give those straight stitches a page 34, folks. I don't know if you agree, but take a look at those. All right. So in the background, we're going to be singing together, Shine on Harvest Moon, Shine on Harvest Moon. Here we go. All right, let's finish off this sew off with the bubblegum material with this purple stitch down the middle. Here we go. And I'm going to do this with my slow gear. Here we go. All right. Again, if you know the words, type it in the chat or sing it in your own space wherever you're at. Maybe you're at work, maybe you're in your car. If you're in the shower, don't get electrocuted, but you can sing there too if you want. That's totally up to you. All right, 3 layers of bubblegum material. Let's see what we got. We have a combination of straight stitching and a blind hem stitch. I believe that's correctly orientated that way. All right, let's take a look at these and see if you think they're page 34 too. Totality of the stitching. Folks, I'm going to give that a solid page 34. I'm not even going to grab the magnifier this time. That is gorgeous stitching. The formation, the stitch integrity, the stitch presentation, both with the cam generated stitch that we did down the middle and then the straight stitching around the edges. That is just, that's art. That's just gorgeous. Let's turn it over and see how that lock stitch did. Let's see if that red dot is going to keep its job or lose its job on this sew off. Let's take a look at this one. Well, I can already see that it's going to keep its job. That's our totality of stitching right there. I'm just going to angle that a little bit more. Oh, I see what it is. That's a little puckered down there. That is just spot on stitching right there, folks. And through what I would consider to be an incredibly tricky material to sew. You saw the stretch factor on that. And I think it was Paula that at a recent premiere when we sewed this on Roz's machine, she said, I was impressed at how that thing fed, how that material fed. 3 layers of that stuff, slippery as snot. And it just fed through there just like a dream. Again, that's a product of the servicing of the machine. Not all machines are going to service it. Not all machines are going to service it. They're not going to service themselves. I've got to do it. They're not going to feed that material as true when they're not serviced properly. And that is just some spot on stitching right there. I would definitely give it a page 34, but let's get a little bit closer and see if we agree. So we'll be looking at all 3 rows at the same time. Beautiful stitching. And if we were sewing a ton of this stuff, I would lean towards probably bumping up the presser foot pressure just slightly, and also at the same time taking a little bit away from that upper tension. We're on the red dot right now. The red dot is a little bit too much for this material. It's actually constricting some of the stitching a little bit and shortening the stitches because it's pulling up too hard. But that's again being hypercritical. The overall appearance of this stitching is absolutely spot on at page 34, and I'm very pleased with it, but I'm just trying to really analyze it. You know what I mean? We're in a classroom. I want to try to analyze it and really scrutinize it so that when you look at it as a student and also sometimes as a teacher, you're going to say, yeah, I think it's definitely a page 34 stitch, but here's what we could do to make it even a higher grade page 34. That's what we're looking for. So this is a definite pass. 3 layers of bubblegum material. The 6440 did a fantastic job in managing a very tricky sew-off. Very, very tricky. So we've got some leather, we've got some acrylic fiber, and then we've got some standard material for some additional decorative type sewing. So I'm just going to buzz around on this leather a little bit. I haven't done some of my fun buzzing around for a while, so we'll just do that probably with a straight stitch and just have a little bit of fun. And this stuff right here is a dyed protected full grain leather. It's about 3 to 4 ounces of leather, and protected full grain, kind of like genuine elk hide. The chemical processing to prepare this protected full grain leather, ergo the name protected, the coating that is injected into this stuff when it's processed and giving us a finished product galvanizes that surface to make it more durable. It galvanizes that surface to make it more able to stand up against high traffic. You know, whether it's on the seat of a private airplane like this stuff is used for, and a butt sliding back and forth across it as people are getting in and out of that seat over and over and over and over again, it's going to be designed to stand up against that traffic. So it's, without being too silly, it's butt tested and butt certified. for the application that these folks use it for anyway. I buy the scraps. They use the premium stuff for these private airplanes. So this is butt tested and butt approved. I love it. Maple leaf rag. Maple leaf rag is the next one. Oh, a little bit of playroom there, folks. A little bit of playroom. Oh gosh, we have fun, don't we? Yes, we do. We do have fun. All right, so being a child at heart, which I hope all of you are too, we're going to be doing a little bit of sewing in a circle, kind of like telling kids that have excess energy to run in a circle. If you've ever seen the movie, oh, what the heck is the movie? I'll think of it. I'll think of what the movie is eventually. Daddy Daycare. There we go. Just trying to remember Daddy Daycare. Alright, so we're going to go back to a straight stitch now. Needle is clear of the material. Stitch length I'm going to make nice and long. Not quite max. I'm going to go right around to 5. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit shorter than that. I'm going to go 4.5. Because I'm going to be kind of pulling this material and trying to maneuver it around in circles a little bit. Alright, this is perfect sewing in a circle music. Let's jump into this. Matter of fact, I'm going to start it over so we don't run out of time. Hold on a second. Here we go. Maple leaf rag. We're going to sew in a circle. Here we go. I probably won't need this full length, but I don't want to run out of music either because it's just fun. All right, here we go. kind of cut that corner a little bit short, didn't I? Really metering out that power through the regulating the foot controller. Oh, I want to try to get one more. There we go. I'm going to stop there. I had one weird little turn where I was like, oh, should I go any further? And I decided, yeah, I'll go further. Did a better job of not sewing over my thread this time. Alright, we'll look at the top stitch first, and some of my little turns in that you'll have to give me a little bit of grace, because some of my turns, like right there and there, are a little bit wonky. Little wonky donkey. Perfect. Yeah, I'm glad that I restarted that, otherwise we probably would have run out of music. Okay, so first of all, the totality of stitching, as I kind of did my little goofy sewing around in a circle. You look at the stitch consistency, the stitch formation, spacing, presentation, ignoring the fact that I didn't make all my turns exactly right. Just the overall appearance of that stitching quality is just absolutely page 34 and absolutely drop dead gorgeous. That really is. I mean, if we did a couple other things to that, we could make that a little piece of art. Even as it stands, it's a little piece of art. And if we look at the stitches with a little bit more scrutiny, a little bit closer, again, look at the side of what we just went through right there. That top edge. 3 to 4 ounces of protected, full grain leather, folks. And our stitching, if I can follow it, folks, it just doesn't get any better than that. It doesn't. We're just going to keep following it. So if you didn't take any ginger to not get seasick, I'm sorry. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. The maneuverability of this 6440 is really quite impressive, and yet it maintained stitch quality. Even as I was pulling that material to try to make some of those turns as best as I was able, like right there, that's not a real great turn, but it maintained stitch integrity right there. And then once we got through that turn, just where we end there in the center, those are page 34 stitches, folks. Even as I was stretching this material and manipulating it. And as we come out and look at the totality of stitching again, I'm just going to say it. That's a definite pass. And this 6440 managed that material very, very well. Again, we're not talking about super thin material. We're talking about right around 3 to 4 ounces of protected full grain leather. Now we're going to look at that lock stitch as best as we're able. Totality of the stitching to start. Even with that little bit of a nap that's kind of masking the clarity of the stitching, we've got some gorgeous stitches there, folks. Don't you agree? Some gorgeous stitches. Again, through a chemically processed protected full grain leather, 3 to 4 ounces. And I'm not going to make you seasick by trying to go all the way around again. I'm going to just kind of get a little bit closer and we'll kind of look at some of the groupings of stitches. Kind of go towards the middle now. Move down here. And again, this is a Schmetz size 90 needle, which would be equated to a size 14 needle. Size 14 that has done a ton of sewing during this premiere and also did a ton of sewing off camera as well, and it's still staying tried and true. There's a little bit of a wonky thing going on right there, but anomalies like that sometimes happen when you're sewing material like this. Totality of the stitching, it just doesn't get any better than that. I'm going to definitely give that a page 34. Lock stitch, top stitch, certified by saying, yep, there we go. Page 34. And this 6440 has done just a fabulous job of delivering consistently through a wide field of sew-offs already. Some people would have stopped long time ago. Not us. We're going to keep driving through this. I'd like to do acrylic fiber on this one too. So I'm going to move over to the acrylic fiber now, and I'll fold it with the lighter side out like I did previously on Roz's machine, if I remember correctly. Get in by that needle a little bit more. Let's see. That was Maple Leaf Rag. That's a fun song. Jazz Me Blues is the next one we'll put on. Jazz Me Blues. So we'll fold this lighter side out. And I'm trying to remember what I did. I think I did 3 layers on the other one. And again, because this is a later model Husqvarna, I'm going to do 2 layers on this one, which is our traditional amount. That's what we were doing for the longest time, is 2 layers. I'm just going to go down and around, and I'll probably do a modified zigzag on this. So I'm going to take my stitch length to 2.5. I'll take my stitch length to 2.5. Let's do this. Let's buzz around and see how this machine can handle this acrylic fiber. Acrylic fiber, if you're brand new to this channel, is used to make awnings. Awnings have to go through every temperature change, deal with high winds, dampness, you name it. They're exposed to everything that can make it fail. And this material is processed in a way where it is galvanized to take a beating and still stay true to its form. So it already tells you it's going to be tough to get through. The piercing threshold is going to be off the charts. But this Viking Husqvarna Model 6440, no worries. Let's get this job done. Here we go. It's like sewing sandpaper, folks. This stuff makes me nervous. It makes me a little nervous. All right, down and around. Here we go. That is just making this tired needle work. As Sonny had said in the recent premiere, needle abuse, needle abuse. Needle abuse. I'm just like going all over the place. This stuff tends to really manipulate the feed dogs and just cause them to get all screwed up and steering. It's like going on a slippery road. All right, I'm going to close the box. Here we go. Perfectly timed to the music. That was not planned. I wish it was. I wish it was planned. It wasn't. Okay, so the side we have up right now is the top stitch. I'm going to try to keep myself from getting disoriented this time. Once I clip the thread so it doesn't keep moving it around. Alright, thread back that way. So this is our top stitch, this is our lock stitch. Our lock stitch is facing up right now. Okay, so top stitch. Get our little holder out that my dear friend Maddie from Florida sent me. Let's take a look at this top stitch. Again, through 2 layers of acrylic fiber. Acrylic fiber is used for making awnings. It is wicked stuff. It is wicked, wicked stuff. We'll get a little bit tighter on this one, just for fun. Folks, that is a page 34. That's a little condensed type zigzag. I only set it on 2 and 2, I think. But when you look at that, the stitch integrity, the spacing, the consistency of the stitching, the presentation of the stitching, it's exactly what we want to be seeing. Exactly what we want to be seeing. So I'm going to give that a page 34 without a doubt. And I'm actually looking at my settings now. It looks like we did 2.5. We did 2.5 as far as the width and length settings. Let's look at that lock stitch now. Let's see if that little red dot gets to keep going with the default, keeps its job. I'm looking at beautiful stitching for this lock stitch as well, but let's get a little bit closer and take a look at it, see what we think. Yeah, all in all, I think that default is working so far with a wide, diverse field of sew-offs. But again, being a real hypercritical person when it comes to the confirmation phase of letting a machine leave the workshop, I might just tweak up that upper tension just slightly to define this lock stitch even more clearly. We've got some really good looking zigzag stitching, but again, being hypercritical when I look at it and I compare it to the top stitch, I think we probably have a little bit more domination on the top stitch right now and a little bit less domination on the lock stitch. So I would just, you can fix it one of 2 ways. You can either increase that upper tension or you can decrease that bobbin pull slightly to give a little bit more emphasis to this lock stitch. That's what I would do. But all in all, it's definitely a pass. I'm going to go ahead and move this to the back as well and give that a definite pass on that quality stitching. So we are down to the final phase now where I'm going to be doing some of the other decorative sewing using some of the other cams that Joan has in her arsenal of cams. I'm going to put on maple leaf rag again and work on changing that cam out. And changing out the cams is actually very simple. I think it was Mary that asked me to do that when we see her machine, but I'll show you it on this 6440 as well. So let me come off the tripod. The big deal when you're changing out cams on these cam generated type machines is to make sure you have that cam stack extended all the way out. So you can see right there is our cam on the back of the machine. I'm trying to find where my finger is. There's our cam right there. And the way you get it to extend all the way out is through our stitch selector. You've got to turn that stitch selector so that it's all the way clockwise. So I think we just have one more click to go. Yep, that's all the way clockwise now. And then you just reach back here and just pull that cam straight out. Don't wiggle it, don't twist it, don't torque it. Just pull it straight out. You can see this one has a total of 3 feet or little prongs that plug into that cam stack. And again, this is a brand new cam stack on here because the other one was cracked beyond repair. So I'm going to set cam A right back here by the sew-offs. And let's see what we're going to pick next. Well, let's pick a fun cam to sew with. Maybe we could do an E. Let's see if that matches. And that's the way you can tell if the machine is going to do what you want it to do, is you compare the output on the cam E to what's on the cam on the machine for that same letter. So you can see they match. They match all the way across. The blue matches, the yellow matches, the red matches, and the green matches. Same output. So we're good to go. Now we just have to go to the rear of the machine. I'm going to slide it in very gently, and then you just rotate it around and apply light pressure in until you feel it seat into place. There we go. It just seated into place beautifully. So now we have cam E in the back, and we have a choice of these stitches. We're probably going to do all 4 of them. We'll start with blue, we'll go yellow, we'll go red, we'll go green. So make a mental note of what they look like. And that's what we're going to sew off on next for cam E. So let me get the camera back on the tripod. Get a little sip of water. And then we'll finish off this premiere with these decorative sew-offs. So again, just a quick reminder, we're going to be sewing cam E. It's those 4. The cool little heart design, the yellow design, the red design, and the green design. So let me get over by the needle. Right about there. I'll get our material set up. I'll get us a little bit more music. Elite Synopkins. I have no idea what that means. Check it out. I don't know if you're like me, but I find it fascinating to listen to other music. I've never heard it before. It's fun. Yeah. There we go. All right, quick drink. And we'll set this thing up to sew the 4 stitches on cam E. E. Yeah. That's fun to say. I've got a stiffener, and then I have these 2 paper thin layers of cotton polyester blend on the other side, so it's like trying to get them lined up. It's like trying to fold a road map, get it back into the glove compartment. What's that about? All right, let's see what I can do with this. All right, pressure foot is down, thank goodness. So now I'm going to set us up for sewing on cam E, and we're going to go with blue first. So I'm going to adjust our stitch selector to blue. Again, make sure your needle is clear. Now I'm going to take my stitch length and turn that to blue. And then last but not least, my stitch width to blue, which is going to be part of that rainbow region. So let me just show you what that looks like real quick. So our stitch selector is on blue. Our stitch length is in the blue region. You have a little bit of discretion there, how far you're going to move it one way or the other. And then last but not least, our stitch width is on blue because it's set on the rainbow setting. See that? So stitch width, stitch length, stitch selector. There you go. That's why they came out with the Colormatic series. It's fairly easy even for the novice sewer to figure it out. You know what I mean? It doesn't take a lot of effort to try to say, okay, I'm going to match all the same colors. Unless you're colorblind, then you're kind of in a pickle, aren't you? A little bit. Okay, so I'm going to move this take-up arm all the way up, and we're going to give cam E a try. And again, we're going to be trying to make a heart pattern. Here we go. It's going to be one of those backward and forward sewing things again, so I'm going to take it nice and slow. The machine is having to work really, really hard. again, since some of these patterns have a little bit of discretion in how you can set them, you may get a different outcome than I do. That's a lovely pattern. And I probably will go a little bit shorter on future ones as far as stitch length, just to make that even a tighter pattern, but it looks really good. You'll have a chance to see these once we're done. And you may be able to catch a glimpse of them right now as I'm clipping the threads and trying to get the thread not to curl. Okay, clip these as well. Okay, so we're doing the next stitch now on cam E, which is a yellow stitch. And it's going to give us a pretty cool pattern, in my opinion. It's almost like a little bush pattern thing going on. So all of our knobs have to be set now on yellow. Let me turn my screen around. They all have to be set on yellow, so I'm going to change the stitch selector to yellow first. And I'll bring my light back forward, which I had not done. And now my stitch length has to be in the yellow region, and it already is, but I'm just going to shorten it just a hair more than it was, just a little bit more. And then part of our rainbow color collage is yellow, so I'm going to leave that exactly where it's at. So we didn't have to change a lot on this pattern to get the yellow output on cam E. Alright, let's try this sew off now. Total silence, no music, no humming. The king is not clicking his teeth. Let's see what happens. Here we go. I got kind of excited there with the foot control, didn't I? Yeah, I did. And you really have to kind of steer this material because those feed dogs are jerking it around a lot trying to execute that pattern. Combination of needle swing and feed dog maneuvering generate the pattern that we want. Really kind of an aggressive action. This machine needs to go through anger management or something, you never know. Alright, we're going to stop right there. And that's also, if you're able to catch a glimpse of it, that is just a, holy mackerel, is that a gorgeous stitch. That is just phenomenal. You know, while they changed the components of the machine and they moved from metal to plastic, they really did as they were moving into the 60s, coming out of the 1950s, where most of the green machines have their inception. They really did decide, you know what, we are just going to blow the socks off of people with giving them decorative ornamental stitches that are just going to be wow. Just absolutely wow. And that's how I would describe a number of the stitches that are available through the different cams for all of the Colormatic machines. Again, depending on the cam stack design, you're able to take a number of cams and use them in multiple machines. And again, if the pattern doesn't match what's on the machine, you might get something a little bit wonky. But as long as you, what I'd recommend is that you give the machine a couple of turns manually by hand to make sure that you're not going to have any issues with the needle striking the throat plate. That's really the biggest concern. So now we're going to do the third stitch on cam E, which is the red stitch, and we're going to turn all the knobs to the red setting. And again, if you want to just, I'll do that when we maybe move into one of the other cams or something like that, you know, just for sake of time. So I'm going to turn the stitch selector to red, then I'm going to take the stitch length and I'm going to turn that into the red region. Yeah, right around there, I think should be good. And then our rainbow setting for the stitch width is already on red, so I'm going to leave that alone. So let's do this next stitch, which is going to be, again, Cam E, the red stitch. Here we go. Notice this one isn't jerking around using the feed dogs as much as doing all of this pretty much through needle swing and needle manipulation. That one was so much more gentle than that yellow stitch we just did, where you felt like you were basically needing to tighten your seatbelt. All right. That's also a gorgeous stitch. I think you can see that in the shot, the one we just did. It's kind of a shell type stitch. Just lovely. Now we would not have gotten this clarity of output with that damaged cam stack, the one that I attempted to repair and then just determined that the damage was beyond what my repair was able to affect a quality output as far as the cam generated stitches. And that's really how I have to evaluate it, is if the quality and the clarity of the output of the cam stitches is not going to be top shelf, then I'm not going to do it. So now we're going to do a green stitch. So I'm taking my stitch selector, which is the upper left one, and I'm turning it to green. You can show that to you real quick. First of all, we'll just admire these. Aren't those spectacular? Those are the ones we've done thus far. Well, I'm way off the charts there. Okay, so again, we're going for the green one next. We've done the other three already, the blue, the yellow, the red. Now we're going to do the green. And so to select our green, we're just going to look at these three knobs. Colormatic system tries to make it very simple. So we're going to turn our stitch selector to green. This is already in the green region. I could make it a little bit shorter. I'm just going to turn it a little bit more counterclockwise. And our rainbow setting is already in the green. Again, the rainbow one that I'm referring to right here is green, red, yellow, blue. So we don't have to do a thing with that. So let me change my camera shot back to the needle. And we will sew off this final stitch on cam E. Final stitch on cam E. Once the camera decides it's going to stop moving. Okay, here we go. And again, just make sure your take-up arm is at the highest position so you get a good launch. All right, here we go. So you saw that one also was being executed without the feed dogs going all crazy. That one was all through needle swing. All through needle swing. And that's a lovely stitch too. You can kind of get a glimpse of it right there. That's a lovely stitch. And again, you have some discretion in the stitch length, so you may decide to go a little bit longer and get a different look than what I just accomplished through that sew off. You might decide to get something totally different. And that's the beauty of it being your machine. You can do with it as you see fit. You are the master. Let's get that back into place. So now we're going to go with a different cam because we've sewn all the stitches on cam E. So the first thing I need to do, again, when you're changing out cams, you have to get that cam stack to its full extension. and that's controlled by this control right here. You got to turn it all the way, and again, make sure your needle is clear of the material. Turn it all the way clockwise, as far as you can possibly go, which is right there. And then you're going to carefully remove that cam from the rear of the machine. Again, do not twist it, do not turn it, pull it straight out. So I just took out cam E, and now I'm going to go with another fun cam. Let's see what I'm going to go with here. Got a choice of cam I or cam K. I think I'm going to do cam K. I like this one a lot. Let's see if you agree. This is cam K right here. That's got some pretty options, doesn't it? And I think that'll wrap up our premiere. I could certainly do other cam stitching, but you don't have to. So we'll sew off on cam K next. And cam K is not going to be on the machine. You're not going to see it anywhere here, but it's going to be manipulated by these bumps that have been engineered into the cam and tell that cam reader finger what to do. So we're going to give it a try, okay? So I'll put cam K in the back of the machine. Again, you just slide it in very gently and then just very, very slowly turn it and apply a little bit of light pressure in until you hear a click. Okay? Then you know that it's safely seated in there. And again, as you're turning it, you're just very gently applying a pressure so that you can know when it's going to click in properly. You just don't want to force it, because again, the cam stack is made out of a thin plastic. Okay. So these will be our last stitches for this premiere. So of course we got to do it to music. Hello. This is my workshop. This is our workshop and our playroom, and we're going to have music. So the next one is called Darktown Shutter's Ball. I'm sorry, Darktown Strutter's Ball. Strutter's Ball. Oh yeah, I'm okay with this one. Alright, so let's get set up for our first stitch, which, I forgot what colors they are. Blue, green, red, yellow. Blue, green, red, yellow. Yeah. So what should we do first? Let's do blue. So our stitch selector is going to go to blue first. Yeah, I'll set it the same as either the E or the F as far as color coordination. All right, let's do the first stitch, and again, this is going to be cam K, like Kelly, and we'll see what we think of this one. So I gave us way too much material to work with, but that's okay. Oh, this is another one that's going to be jerking the feed dogs all over the place. Oh yeah, that's a pretty one. I like that one a lot. Can you see that one at all? The one we just did? That's pretty neat, isn't it? Well, that guy or gal sure can play the piano, can't they? And if you never watched Beverly Hillbillies and you have no idea why I'm saying piano, that's the way Granny pronounced it. So there's the one that we just sewed again. Absolutely gorgeous, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Nice song. Oh my goodness, I like that song. Didn't you like that song? cow, it sounds like a fire drill. Okay, so we did blue, now we're going to do yellow. Alright, here we go, yellow. And again, whenever you change the knob settings, make sure your needle is clear. Oh, that's a pretty one. That's like a starburst. Oh yeah, you're gonna like this one a lot. You just kind of get a glimpse of that one there too, the one we just did, the starburst. See that? I think they did an excellent job of stepping up their cam output, don't you? As they moved into the 1960s, they really said we're gonna blow people's socks off. Yeah, we are. So now we're gonna do the red stitch. We're gonna have 2 more stitches left. All right, here goes our red stitch off of Cam K, like Kelly, or Kevin. See, this one is all needle swing. It's not doing much at all with the feed dogs other than just steady feed. It's our snaky stitch. Our snaky stitch. Yeah. We only have 1 more stitch left. 1 more stitch. Our last stitch is going to be the green stitch, the green stitch. The green stitch. So this next one is called Melody Victoria. That sounds kind of proper, doesn't it? Melody Victoria. All right, our final stitch, the green stitch. So I've got to change our stitch selector to green. Our stitch length is already on green, and then our rainbow, one of our colors in the rainbow selector is green. I'll show you what I mean. I'll show you what I mean with the green. There, well. Wait, those are the controls. I wanted to look at the controls. Hello! So green for our stitch selector. Green for our stitch length. And you can see I'm not all the way down as far as I could go. I'm pretty close. If I turned it a little bit more counterclockwise and move closer to the 0 but still within the green, I could make it even shorter. And then finally our stitch width, which is also in the rainbow area, which includes green. There you go. Look at that. We've done a good job, haven't we? I just cut the material too big. Look at all that space! Okay. Calm down, Scott. It's okay. You got scissors, buddy. You got scissors! All right. Let's do this final green stitch on Cam K, like Kevin or Kelly. Here we go. Oh, I ended in the down position. I wanted to end in the up position. That's okay. And that's our, whatever I called it, the bugle type pattern that we just did. Some of you might have a different name for it, and you know what? You can call it whatever you want. Although the book might tell us to call it something else. I'm sure it will. This is a fun music box song, isn't it? It sounds like a music box. All right, time to cut down my extra material and to show you what we did. We'll do it kind of like this. All right, if any of you are drooling and saying, wow, those are pretty awesome, and that's only a small sampling of what Joan's 6440 can do, type it in the chat like, wow, that's pretty cool, that's pretty awesome, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. That's a lovely song, isn't it? Melody Victoria. Next one is called Look Busy. I'm going to see if we're going to end with that or not. Oh, sure, let's end with this. This is lovely. Look Busy. It only runs for 1 minute and 47 seconds, so I better talk quick. So these are our top stitches right here, which are absolutely, hello. Matter of fact, we'll look at 3 rows at a time. I love the tuba, don't you? I lost track. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's a bummer. We had 3, 3, and then 2. How did that happen? Galloping gumdrops, Batman. Oops. Totality of the stitching. Calm down, Scott. Your zoom is going to kill us all. Aren't those lovely? All right, let's get it turned over for the lock stitch. We're going to run out of music. We're going to run out of music. See that? We didn't use upholstery thread this time. Look at how much more detailed they are. Yeah, they are. This is the lock stitch, folks. Okay, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Play it again, Sam. Please. Play it again, Sam. What do you mean your name isn't Sam? That's what they told me. So these are our lock stitches for these cam stitches. Let's kind of go down. Folks, that is, wow. Hello, page 34. Note to self, do not use upholstery thread anymore, ever. Because the definition with this quilting thread is off the charts compared to what we were getting with the quilting thread. With the upholstery thread, you know what I meant. Yeah, the upholstery thread that we used on Roz's machine was nowhere near this clarity. Wow. Wow! That's art. That's art! All right, come out on the shot. We saw those enough. Probably not. So this is Joan's 6440 from the 1960s. Again, the first Colormatic came out in 1960 up until the 1970s, right around 1972. Yeah. So we did this amazing series of decorative sew-offs using cams A and E. Those are fabulous. I'm going to put those right there. Acrylic fiber, leather, bubblegum material, elk hide, commercial material. One more time, Sam. I'm sorry. I have to talk faster. I should be an auctioneer. Well, let's do the other one, the music box one. Yeah, I love this one too. Now I gotta start all over. All right, acrylic fiber, 2 layers of that. Protected full grain leather. We sewed in a circle. Yeah, we did. Bubblegum material, 3 layers. Spectacular. Elk hide, single layer, amazing. 4 layers, commercial upholstery material. And we actually sewed it without upholstery thread this time. 3 layers, compressed felt, spot on. Ribbon material incredibly thin. I gotta turn that down a little bit. Otherwise your ears are gonna be pinging. So that's ribbon material, super thin. And then this commercial grade canvas, 4 layers of that, absolutely spot on. But these decorative stitches are just plain fun, aren't they? They are just plain fun. I'm gonna put my clips underneath those. So, if you've ever wondered about the Colormatic machines, now you know. Easy to use, plenty strong, and you only saw a tiny little glimpse of the beauty of their decorative output as well. All right, Joan, your baby is coming home and now the decision is yours. Does your daughter-in-law get it? Or does your granddaughter? I'm not sure where the votes went. That'll ultimately be your call. All right, you received my approval along with the King, His Majesty's. You can now leave the workshop. Yes, you can. That was fun, wasn't it? Yeah. All right, on to the next machine, which I think will be Emily's. Or it could be, got to think about that for a little bit. At any rate, hope you enjoyed watching this 6440 do its magic. And do it so absolutely beautifully. Amazing machine, isn't it? All right, Your Majesty. She's leaving the building now.